Cool. So, welcome to another UMedia Learning Labs Network Hangout. Today we're talking with Corey and Julie from Pittsburgh and Chicago about Corey's kits, his programming kits primer. Julie, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So, Corey, can you start by telling us about the resource and what inspired you to create it?
Sure. Is it jumping over to me here? Yeah. So the kits are basically like a distillation of what's happening at our weekly sites. So we have weekly locations where we do programming, um, now 5 of our locations. And the kits are just sort of like a boxed up version of what we do at those locations so that they can be used at our other library locations. So, I'm going to do a screen share here and I'll show you the one document I've shared. It'll give you an idea of what this looks like. So there's a link for this in the discussion forum on the Community of Practice site. A little overview about what it is, some tips about how to create a kit, and then the kits themselves and what's in them. So for instance, there's this drum machine kit, which comes with the drum machine, the audio cables and things necessary, and some speakers and things like that, but also some comic book resources, comic book style visual guides on how to use it. So we're understanding that a lot of people that are doing this programming in libraries and museums, aren't familiar with this kind of thing. So we wanted to create a really easy curriculum that both teens and staff could use. So, we basically wanted to figure out a way to get, stopping sharing here, to push out to locations where we didn't have a full space. So the thing I say in that intro document is, if this is something that we're really doing in museums and libraries, that isn't just a passing fad. We have to find a way to make it fit in all size, programming spaces. A lot of our libraries, the teen space is just a little corner in the library. So if you can't have, the Harold Washington UMedia set up or like some of our big teen spaces, you can have some of these programming kits sent over to you and, sort of claim some space on the library floor and do the same type of programming as long as you have that staff.
Great. And so, who have you seen in your system using the kits? And I'm wondering how you see that might be transferable to other locations and what kinds of folks are using the kits. Is it just teen librarians? Is it staff across the board? Who's using them?
It started with teen librarians and teen specialists. We do what we call labs on location, and that's where we send one of our mentors out to a branch where we don't do weekly programming. They do training with the staff there, and then they co-facilitate a workshop. So the kits are really handy for that because we reach out to the staff at that location and get a sense of what type of thing they want to do. And you'll see in the document I posted on the site that the kits reflect a really broad array of the types of programs we offer. So if they're into music, we can pair them with a music activity. If that's what the teens are into, or robotics, or printmaking, or what have you. And we'll start from that and train the teen specialists using that kit. But then the kit can also be requested and sent back to them. So that was like what they were designed for in the first use. But now we're starting to see adult services folks borrowing them to get familiar with some of these ideas. Because I think, like at a lot of our sites, adults come through and they find out it's just for teenagers, and they say, I want to do this. So we're starting to see a bit of that, and a lot of them too are being used by teen or children's librarians with older kids. We just recently started doing children's programming with the labs at 2 new locations, sort of like tween age, like 8 to 11. So, the Hummingbird robot, the Finch robot, Makey Makey, things like that are really easy to sort of scale down to that age group.
Great. And I was just going through all the different folders, and there's just such an immense amount of resources in there. So I'm really excited to pull and pick and choose different things that I think will work well here. But I'm curious, for folks who do want to use this research, since there is so much information, do you have a sense of a good starting point for people to sort of get their feet wet in this sort of idea of expanding kits to their location?
Sure. So, all right, I'm going to go back to screen sharing again. The main thing, I would start with this document and sort of get a feel for what is included in each of those kits, and those visual activity sheets, and most of them have an instruction comic too. So, okay, this is the Finch robot, which I know Chicago has some Finches. So it's going to get you accustomed to not just like what it does, but even how to set it up. So you'll see, a little bit of an explanation about what this robot is, how to, I didn't say robot, how you plug it in, how you launch the program. It's all pretty basic. So that's a really good place to begin. There's also, I didn't hyperlink to the supplies themselves, but the stuff's all, pretty easy to Google and sort of find online. But I would start with this document, and then from there, let's see, get at this guy. I also posted a link to this folder that has sort of everything that's linked to from that main document. I linked to badges that can be earned with these kits. So you see with the Hummingbird kits, there's a Hummingbird Robotics badge and an inventor badge that we created. So you can see what those badge checks look like. Those are also all in this folder. But there's also, in each kits folder, you'll see everything that kind of goes along with that. The activity sheets, but also some tips and sort of we have a binder that goes in every kit. So if you wanted to just replicate this, there's a sort of table of contents. The format's probably going to look weird on this. Oh no, it's just a Google Drive document. Yeah, so, I don't know. It's probably the point of access is going to probably be a little bit different for everybody. But I would begin with that main PDF that I shared, and then, see what kit interests you most. There are, I guess, different levels of skill with them. I feel like Hummingbird can be a little tricky to just start out with. I mean, I think like a lot of things we do, go with what interests you and let the interest sort of, lead you through that. But I think the comics, we designed the comics to be workable for both teens and staff. We had a bunch of teen volunteers this summer test them out and give us notes on like if they got stuck somewhere. But we thought they'd be good for both passive programming, like something you could just leave out in space along with the equipment and have teens follow along and see if they could get through it, but also as visual curriculum for staff to use.
Cool. And then I'm also kind of curious just about how you pulled together all of these different resources. Was it just you sort of sitting in a room, putting all the documents together? Was it a team effort? Did you have committees? Where did all of this information originate from?
It's very much a team effort. The mentors, the labs mentors, and I have created these things over, I guess, about a year now, over the last year. We started doing the Labs on Location programming last September. So, when we first started our programming, we first started going for the IMLS grant to get involved with the UMedia community. We first thought of a mobile program where we would serve the whole system and thought we'd get to that sooner, but realized that it was going to be better for us to figure out what worked if we really, put down stakes at some physical locations. So that's the way we ended up going, and then, that's where our focus was for the first couple of years. The Labs on Location was our way to serve the whole system and make sure the labs was a system-wide thing. So even though now we have 5 weekly locations where we have more staff and stuff and space, we also have a assigned mentor for the rest of our other 12 locations. And that's what Labs on Location is for. And when we started doing that, we realized we just needed some mobile form of the workshops and our equipment. So, we found those shipping bins. They're from that company Uline, and we just send them in with our interlibrary loan books or inter-branch loan stuff. And yeah, just figured out a way that worked for us to get them sent around without things breaking, and for people to be able to request when we couldn't be there, since the staff has always been part-timers other than myself, who are the labs mentors. We needed a way for full-time staff or branch staff to access that stuff. So it just came from this need of like, how do we get this out to other locations? How do we show them that this is accessible to them? But yeah, it was very much me just sort of tapping different mentors and saying, like, can you make a comic for this? Can you like get together what you think is required for this kit? And yeah, a lot of that over a better part of a year. So.
Great. And the last question I have is, what did you learn from the process of making this resource? Are there any sort of like insights that you have that for someone who might want to be replicating this at their site that you would want them to know?
The main thing when I look at this, I realize that a lot of them are kind of expensive, but you can totally do it cheaper. So let me do one final screen share here. Or am I still screen sharing? I'm not, am I? Okay. Let's see. So, the drum machine, I tried to do like a price guide here, this is, kind of rough, but it gives you a basic idea. This one I'd say could even probably be like a single dollar sign, but the drum machine and these extra things maybe are what drove it up a bit, but that's not much. The printmaking kit or the hand sewing kit, where's hand sewing? This is like a cheap one that's just, scraps of material and needles and thread, and putting the time to create the curriculum is the main thing and the really valuable thing. It doesn't have to be iPads or really expensive stuff. These ones are expensive because it is 5 iPads, so that's gonna run you some money. But it can just be different levels of engagement following the whole Hamago kind of idea. But this printmaking kit is cheap. It's just that you can be flexible with it, and it doesn't have to reflect the most expensive and top of the line stuff. It's really just getting out of the sort of silos of one staff member has this specialty. If they take the time to create some kind of curriculum that's shareable, that comic form has worked for us because, I don't know, I'm personally a pretty visual learner, so I thought that was helpful rather than following print instructions. But that's not always the best case or the best way to do the instructions for everything we've done. But just getting people to spend the time to record that in some version. And I'd really like to do sort of video share outs of what's in the kit to connect to your resource, Julie. Do like a short sort of, following your plan, like couple-minute piece that explains what's in the kit and how you'd use that, and hopefully link that to the document in the future. But yeah, the biggest takeaway is just getting people to record what they know and make sure that knowledge doesn't leave with a staff member or kind of go away when maybe you've tried this thing a couple times and it worked for you, but you're onto something else. But that could be really useful to get somebody else started or give somebody the basics of a lot of this programming.
Corey, what was the program that you used to make the comics?
It's called Comic Life. It is now, I think, an app from the Apple App Store. It's not too expensive. I forget how much. I want to say it's like 10 or 15 bucks. We got it originally when it was a CD-ROM or whatever, and I think it's still up there and is cheaper. I think there's a PC version of it too. There's probably something similar. It's just pop in so we'll take pictures with our phone or an iPad or whatever, and then just pop them in the different panels. You can draw panels the way that suits you, or you can work from these templates of different comic panel layouts, and it's pretty easy to work with. And what we do so we can update these things, because if we get notes from a teen or somebody or want to change the process, we'll make sure we keep the Comic Life file saved, like the work file, and then turn the finished version, the current finished version, into a PDF. So if you do it, I would just recommend that everybody keeps the Comic Life file going, because you will, invariably find something that you want to change. And that's what I said in one of the tips on the document I shared too, is to think of them as a sort of a living resource and to go back and tweak these things. And it's always nice to add more activity sheets to these kits as well as they go along. It's not just like it arrives and there's only one thing you can do with it. All of these kits, there's a lot of different things you can do with them.
Cool. Anything else that you guys want to ask? Any other questions? Any other things you want to say? I think this is a really exciting resource, and I think a lot of people are going to get a crazy amount of use out of it. And I feel like this also satisfies that question that a lot of other librarians will give you, like, how can we do what you're doing at your site in our library. Like, how can we get those resources? So this is, I think this will be very, very useful. And I'm also excited to see if any of other sites decide to make their own kit, what they would make and how they would iterate on what you've already developed.
Yeah, it'd be great to start, throwing those on to the site and share those. I'd love to like take some kit ideas from other sites too. There's other ones we've wanted to make. Like there's like Little Bits has been sort of sitting on the side. I've made a soldering one, but I just need to finish the activity sheets. And I know that's not going to fly at every site, but the soldering one is more or less ready to go. We did one idea is to be able to share these out with partners, or maybe have them be checked out by educators in the future. We've been wading through the difficult process of getting them cataloged, but we're kind of got some records set up for those now. So, there's even a process for that. If people are interested, I could share like what our item records or bib records look like for these, which on the nerdy librarian side might interest some folks. Because if we want that, it's another one of these things where like to legitimize it, there's once you get the catalogers in the game and they create a process for it, it feels more real. So that's cool too.
Let's definitely include that even in the comments, or like just stick it to the bottom, or if there's some light way that you could do it, I think that would be really useful.
I actually have it. We use Sierra, which is, I'm sure some libraries use that same. Is that what you guys use in Chicago, Julie? No.
We use Parallax.
Okay, I'm not sure if it has. It's pretty specific to Sierra, but I have a document for creating the item record that might be useful to people. As far as like loan times, and that's very much like something we're still tweaking, but I'll just put it in that folder in case it's of use to people, and then it's there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corey, and I'm sure we'll be asking you to talk a little bit more about this in the future at some point.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to end this and then see you guys soon.